Good evening. Welcome to our Bhakta Books Cultural Arts Series, where we offer outstanding artists, musicians, authors, scholars, and performing artists. And let's talk a little bit about our speaker tonight, Al Rondon. He's a famed photographer from San Antonio, drove up to see us tonight. He has photographed the following people: Henry Cisneros, Henry Kissinger, Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, the Pope John Paul II. The list is so long, it would take me all night but some of my favorite images are just average people. And of course, not to say that the Pope and the others aren't average people. I'm sure they think they are, but he finds some interesting characters to photograph. But tonight, the story is on Charreada, Mexican rodeo in Texas. That's our Spanish heritage has given us the cowboy, and he will talk about a special aspect of that heritage tonight. It's my special honor to introduce Al Rondon.
My mother wanted to take pictures of every single event that we ever had. As she got older, she couldn't see as well. She was having trouble taking photos, so I started taking pictures, and just with a little Instamatic Kodak camera. And I really liked it. And I think that had an influence on me once I got to high school as to trying to decide what I wanted to do. And it wasn't like I was thinking this was going to be my career when I started doing it in high school, but it just kind of morphed into that, turned into that. I was a senior in high school. I was already selling my photos. I had been going to rock and roll concerts and getting backstage and taking pictures and selling them to magazines, selling them to the local, newspaper, kind of like The Current. And I was having some success with that and earning a little extra money on the side, and I kind of realized that by the time I was a senior in high school that that's what I thought I was going to do for my living, was be a photographer and be an artist. It took me a long time to get to this point to where I feel comfortable with everything that I'm doing now, but it was sort of learn as you go along kind of thing. But I was very aggressive and very set in my mind that this is what I wanted to do, and so that's what I did. In the beginning, I was just trying to make a living. So I was mainly doing commercial photography, public relations, ribbon cuttings, conventions, all sorts of things. But on my free time, I was always going out and shooting pictures for myself, documenting the Latino culture, taking pictures at charreadas, taking pictures at Conjunto Festival, taking pictures at all kinds of cultural events that San Antonio is known for. Slowly but surely, I developed all those things into series of photographs that I could exhibit. And so starting in the mid-'80s on till now, I've exhibited my artwork in different museums and in different galleries, not just here in San Antonio, but in other places as well. Over the years, I've developed a lot of different series that have been popular and that have sold well. I've had a flower series, I've had a charreada series that was made into a book. But in the process, I kind of developed a series of photos of people, and mostly people here in San Antonio that I consider that have contributed to the culture of San Antonio. I've documented a lot of people. So the current thing that I'm doing right now, the thing that I'm most drawn to for my artwork, is called a series that I call Retratos. And every couple of weeks or so, I pick a subject and I call them up and I arrange to go take a photograph of them. And we also record them, ask them a question and get a quote. And we publish it on the Revarve Report. And eventually, all of those are going to end up in an exhibit somewhere. I did a really beautiful portrait of Selena when she was around. I used to do a lot of photos of Tejano artists. It's in the collection at the National Portrait Gallery in Washington, D.C. It's part of an exhibit that's up right now called The Cool 100. It's been turned into a book. It's a beautiful coffee table book. So I'm real proud of that. Also working on an exhibit, and that's the San Antonio Missions. They're up for a World Heritage Site designation. I take a real straight approach to photographing the architecture and the details of the missions. I'm trying to cover them in kind of a comprehensive way to where I show you what they look like on the outside, what they look like on the inside, but also bring out details that you might not pick up on if you're there immediately. I'm always challenged when I go out to photograph my subjects to get something that just has something in it that just makes it stand out a little bit more than the average photograph. While covering one of San Antonio's fiestas, I came upon an event that took me back in time, Charreada. At the end of the day, it always comes back to the people, to being open to the faces of my part of Texas. All right, kind of wondering how I got into all this, right? Back in 1981, when I was still starting my photography career, one of my assignments was to photograph Fiesta for the San Antonio Fiesta Commission, which is a big festival that has about 100 different events that take place in about 10 days. So I was running around like crazy, going to all these different events every day, trying to document everything. On the last day, I was sent to the Charo Ranch. I had never been there to document the Charreada. It was the first time I'd ever been to a Charreada back in 1981. And it was just one of many events I had to cover that day, but when I got there and I saw what was going on and I started photographing it, I just stayed through the whole thing and didn't go anywhere else because I was so enamored with what these people do. It's just such a beautiful sport to experience in person. And what ended up happening is I ended up going back every year. After 20, 25 years, I have a huge collection of pictures of Charreada. And I was fortunate enough that the Texas Folklore Society picked me to produce a book back in 2011. And so I'm going to go through these and kind of tell you a little bit of the history behind the sport and how it got started here in America and everything. Charreada demands a lot of both horse and rider. Participants prepare all year for Charreada season and team competitions. For these families, Charreada is a way of life. So most of these families that participate in Charreada are all professional people. A lot of them are doctors, lawyers, accountants, businessmen, and this is what they do on the weekends. This is their hobby, their sport, and they bring it from Mexico. It's a national sport in Mexico. Now, the first people, of course, had brought horses and cattle to the U.S. were the Spaniards, and Ponce de Leon brought horses and cattle into Florida back in the early 15th century. And after about 20, 30 years of these ranches springing up all over Florida, the Crown of Spain decided, we want to know who has what and we want to tax you on it. So they had to start rounding up all their cattle and branding them and counting them and seeing who had what. So this turned into an annual event for all these haciendas in Florida. And so these annual events, they were called Rodeo de Granado, became social gatherings as well as working events. The haciendas were spaced far apart, and in the process of helping neighbors round up their livestock, the charros had an opportunity to hold competitions to show their skill and courage, impressing both potential wives and employers at the same time. So long before the first American cowboys saddled up on the western range, the charros were plying their trade and competing in horsemanship and wrangling. Now, in Charreada, it's performed in a much different setting than American rodeo. It has a big oval arena that they perform in, and mostly they compete against each other for who's the best bull rider or who's the best, bronking, horse rider. In Charreada, they have a different kind of arena. It's sort of like a frying pan shaped arena where they have a long section and then a circular arena. And it's a team sport. So the teams are competing against each other in all these different events that they have. They have 9 different events that they compete in during a Charreada. Now, I usually, after I learned about this event and I got to become more familiar with it, I would get there very early before the event even started. And one of the things I like to do is go around and introduce myself to the different charros and get to know them, photographing them getting ready for the event. And it's quite a family affair. Most of everyone involved in these families are somehow involved. The women are escaramusas, the men and their sons are the charros. And they, it's an expensive sport to be part of because you have to pay to take care of your horse and the cattle, and you have to, all these costumes they wear come from Mexico, and they're very elaborate, and they're pretty expensive. They probably spend thousands of dollars just on their costumes. So these are just a few of the shots that I've taken, sort of behind the scenes and in the beginning when they're warming up their horses and they're kind of getting ready. And since I've been doing this for like 25 years, I've seen the younger generations come up and also get involved in the sport. These are 2 moms, and they're out front helping collect tickets. They're selling programs. They're trying to raise money for their daughters to be a charro queen, because every year they pick a charro queen to be in Fiesta. This is also just a charro with their daughter, and she was a former queen. When I first started, she was one of the first queens I documented. This young boy is just getting started. They picked him that day to carry the banner, and they have a parade that comes out in the very beginning. Now, at the beginning of the Chariada, all the charros and escaramuzas ride in a parade through the arena, and usually a mariachi band is playing Marcha Zacatecas, which is a march that pays tribute to charros' role as an auxiliary force in Pancho Villa's army during the Revolution. The charros are very patriotic. Each procession is led by a color guard with American and Mexican flags, along with banners representing the competing associations, and then the 9 events of Chariada begin. So at the very beginning, they all come out and parade into the ring and take up positions, and the honor guard comes out last with the flags. And then once everyone is in position, they usually play the national anthem, the U.S. national anthem and the Mexican national anthem. They get their kids involved at a very young age. You can see a lot of the youngsters all grouped together on horses, and this gentleman here, Don Socrates, was one of the gentlemen that helped me during the process of putting the book together to make sure that I got all the nomenclature correct on how I described all the different events. So once they're all lined up, they're playing the different anthems, and they're usually saluting it while that's going on. This is one of the very first pictures I took when I first got there the very first year. I was up kind of high in the stands, and I looked down, and that gentleman's, I was amazed that a lot of them were carrying firearms. I wasn't expecting that. You don't see someone getting ready to start, compete in the rodeo wearing, a pistol. So once they get past the playing the anthems and everything, then they all parade out of the arena and the actual event starts. And the first event is called La Cala, and it takes place in the long end of the lenzo, which is that long part. And what it is each team member is going to present his horse. Each charro enters the lenzo with a flourish, galloping in and bringing his horse to a sliding stop within the boundaries of a chalked rectangle. The horse rises from his knees, and the charro directs his mount to spin to the right and left, making a full circle in each direction, then a half circle in each direction, leaving one hoof in place while making the maneuver. After these opening maneuvers, the charro presents himself and the horse for inspection by the judges. Every detail, the materials used in the saddle, the ropes, and even the charro's apparel, the way the saddle is secured, and the reins and bit must meet strict codes. The charros have a high regard for their animals, and they make every effort to make sure the animals are not harmed in the competition. After passing inspection, the charro backs his horse for a minimum of 50 meters. This is difficult because the horse cannot see behind him and must trust his rider to guide him along the course. Penalty points are assessed if either the rider or the horse violates the specifications. So let me go through a couple of images here that kind of shows you what this, they're just racing down this long section of the arena and then coming to a full stop right on a dime, right on the chalk line. So you can see that it's kind of violent, to just come running up and then stop like that. So once that's over, then they're going to come in and they're going to do their turns to the left and the right. And then after that, those are the judges in the foreground. He's going to dismount, and the judges are going to inspect the horse and his mount and his saddle and everything, all his gear, and they're assessed points for that. So once this takes place, then the next event is where they start showing off their different skills. The next event is called the Pieles. In the next phase of the competition, 3 charros line up at specific points in the lenzo panhandle. A riderless mare is sent along a straight line, and each charro has 3 chances to lasso her hind legs. Some of the mares are experienced at this, and they learn to avoid the lassos by slowing or speeding up or lifting their hind legs to keep from getting roped. So basically, they're chasing that mare down the chute, and they're trying to lasso his hind legs. And this is a very hard thing to do. It's not too often that I actually see them make it and catch the horse's hooves from the hind legs. I don't have a really good picture to illustrate when they capture them, but these pictures kind of illustrate what's going on. They're all kind of lined up there, waiting their turn to get a chance to lasso the horse. This is actually after the horse has gone too far, and they're just trying to corral it back into the arena. Now, the next event after this is called El Colorado, and it's the final event that takes place in that panhandle, and it's called the tailing of the bull. The charro must salute the bull, then ride up, grab its tail, and wrap it around his leg, accelerating the horse to throw the bull. Points are awarded based on the fall of the bull. If the bull rolls completely over, the charro earns 12 points. So basically, he's running down and capturing that bull by the tail, kind of wrapping it around his leg and trying to get it to roll over. And many times they can't even catch the tail. The bull outruns them, or they run too slow or too fast. So it's a very complicated thing for them to do. And going through this sport for over 20 years, I mean, in this particular picture, you can tell that it's muddy, it's been raining. Sometimes it was raining when I'm there, sometimes it was bright and sunny, other times it was cloudy. So rain or shine, they're going to put that event on. This is a little closer up view, so where you can see, that's a pretty hefty bull there that he's trying to bring down by the tail. And now this final shot I'm taking this shot from up in where the judges usually are at to judge the event. And he has already rolled the bull, and you can see kind of the chalk line there that, he has to do it before you pass that chalk line. So he just barely got the bull down and rolled before he went too far. Now, after this event, and it takes a while to go through all these events, up to this point is about midway through the event. And so they kind of take a halftime break and allow the judges to get ready to go up to the judges' tower and observe the next events. And so in the meantime, the escaramusas come out. And the escaramusas are the women's riding teams. And there's 8 escaramusas to each team, and the 2 teams compete against each other. And their main thing that they do is precision riding. As a team of 8 riders on horses, and they're all sitting side saddle, they ride around the arena performing all these intricate maneuvers. I'm going to try and describe some of them to you here. Let me kind of click ahead a little bit here so you can see them when they're coming in. La Escaramuza, translated as the skirmish, gives tribute to the Adelitas, women of the Revolution. During the Revolution, groups of women would ride their horses, kicking up dust to stimulate a charging band of soldiers performing as decoys. Their rides would distract the enemy and allow the revolutionary troops a chance to attack from the enemy's flank. In the charreada, the women's presentation begins with the judges' inspection of the riders and their mounts. So the teams come in and they kind of go back out, and they're going to come in one at a time, just like the men did, and bring their horse to a standing stop and be inspected by the judges. And usually while this event is going on, they have some mariachi music playing. It's a very lively event. Each rider is dressed in a splendid dress. She's mounted side saddle and performs with her team as many as 10 maneuvers at a full gallop, including La Punta, which is, this is when they're coming galloping out. And then they come, that's called La Punta, when they pull up the horse onto its hind legs. And this particular girl almost went too far because she was almost to the end of the lenso when she pulled her horse up. It's very exciting. The audience gets real excited, and they all gasp. They're worried that she's not going to stop in time. It's kind of all orchestrated. So after they've each presented themselves and kind of gone through this maneuver and been judged on their attire and everything, they go back out, and then they come in and start their coordinated movements. Each rider is dressed in a splendid dress. She is mounted. Okay, I already read that part. Sorry. She is mounted side saddle and performs with her team as many as 10 maneuvers in a full gallop, including La Punta, a sliding stop, and precision riding events where the escaramuza teams synchronize to form various shapes. El Banico, the fan, which I am kind of a big fan of, and I photographed it many times, and it's not easy for them to all get together like that, perfectly spaced, and then right around the arena all fanned out at a very full speed gallop. Now, besides the abanico, they also do a thing called cruzados, the cross, pasados romanos, Roman passes, caracol, the shell, mariposa, the butterfly, anillos, the rings, colorado, a narrow pass, escalera, the ladder, and grillo, a rotation. And some of these photos are not probably the best for illustrating all these different moves, because when I'm out there shooting, I'm just trying to get good pictures and not focusing on trying to capture each precision riding event as a whole. But it makes for beautiful photography, and I'm sorry I'm showing you this all in sepia tone. It's very beautiful in color, but just for consistency, I've always done all my artwork in a sepia tone. It kind of gives it an old world Spanish feel. And the thing about this event, it is kind of timeless. I mean, it's over 300-year-old sport, and it has not changed at all. So even though I photographed this over 30 years, it still looks the same, because all the horses, all the uniforms and everything stays the same. The only thing that changes are the people in the stands. And that's just the whole team together in a group shot. So once the escaramuzas have done their thing and everyone's entertained, then it's time for the real exciting part of the charreada, and this is where these charros really get to show off a little bit. Let me give you a little information about the judges. Here they're up in their tower so they can observe everything. Charreada is regulated by the Federación Nacional de Charros of Mexico or Texas. Judges must be certified annually by passing a test every year. They must be in complete charro costume while judging. And the first event that they're going to judge is called Jinete de Toro. The men's riding competition begins with the Jinete de Toro, or bull riding. A girth and flack strap is tied to a 1,000-pound bull, and the rider gets positioned in the chute. A rider holds onto the girth strap and moves the flack strap to encourage the bull to buck. If he can remove the flack strap, the charro earns additional points. He stays on the bull until it comes to a rest or throws him. The event is similar to American rodeo of bull riding. And usually these guys don't stay on these bulls very long. Once in a while they get a lazy bull and they can stay on it till, it calms down. But you can see right there, that's a pretty serious bull that he's riding bareback with just that flack strap and to hold on to. To me, this is much more difficult than American bull riding. In American bull riding, they have all kinds of protective gear they put on them now. They have those rodeo clowns to protect them when they fall off the bull. Here, these guys got to jump up and run away as fast as they can. This guy's in the process of falling. Now, I don't think there's anything in the rules that says they can't drink beer while they're performing, because you can see those guys in the background. They're kind of drinking some beers while it's going on. Now, this is kind of coming up on the next event. This is called La Terna en la Rodeo. This is a team roping event that uses the same bulls that performed in the Jinete de Toro. The lead charro performs many florins, rope techniques, and flourishes to show his skill. This demonstration can involve a number of tricks, such as jumping in and out of the twirling lasso. Then he must rope the head of the bull, hold it in position, so a second charro, after performing his florins, can lasso his legs. Sometimes the first charro has such a command of the bull that he can back the animal into a lasso laying on the ground, where the second charro proceeds to tighten the rope, and the bull is pulled in opposite directions until it is stretched on the ground. The team is scored on teamwork, roping skills, and timing. So basically, this gentleman on the horse is first on his horse doing a lot of roping skills, just showing how well he can control the rope. He's going to rope that animal, kind of try and bring it to a stop. And then there's going to be another charro that's already going to be on his horse doing the same thing, trying to show off his roping skills, and then try and lay the lasso on the ground, and he's going to try and back that cow into the rope. And what ends up happening is they both have the bull from the back and the front, and they stretch him out on the ground, and they try not to hold him in place too long. They don't want to hurt the animals, and then they kind of loosens their rope and let it go. And then the next event after that called Jinete de Vega, which is pretty much horse bronking, but instead it's a mare. The next event is mare riding. Charros choose lots to determine which mare they will ride in this event. Similar to the Jinete de Toro, a girth and flanking strap are attached to the mare. Only 4 minutes are allowed for mare's preparation, and the horses are not very cooperative. The charro loses points for every minute over the 4-minute period it takes to prepare the horse. The charro is allowed to hold on to either the girth strap or the mane during his ride. Points are awarded according to how long he stays on the horse and how lively she bucks. The charro wants a mare that will give an impressive ride. They don't really have their choice. I mean, they have to pull lots, and the horse they get is the horse they get, and some are much, give them a much better ride than others, and the ones that don't, they try and spur them on to buck a little more, so they put on a little more of a show. Unfortunately, this is the best picture I have of this event. I don't have a lot of pictures to show you what happens during this, but you can imagine there's several charros on each team, and they all have to ride these mares. This slide shows you a little bit about their roping skills. I mean, they get on the ground, they jump through those ropes, and then they also do the same thing on the horse. Believe it or not, some of them can stand on their horse and jump back and forth through those hoops. So this next event is called Manganas a Pie. Using the same mare he rode in the Jinete, the charro stands between a chalk line in the arena and the arena wall. Mounted team members chase the mare around the arena and attempt to bring her between the charro and the arena wall, whereupon he tries to lasso her hind legs. 3 attempts are allowed. This is also something that's very difficult for them to do, because while he's standing there jumping in and out of that lariat that he's, his rope, they're chasing this mare around the arena, and he's got to try and lasso her hind legs. I like this picture, but it doesn't really illustrate it that well, but it kind of gives you an idea. Here he's thrown out his lariat probably a little too soon to try and capture the horse. This is another example of some of their roping skills, where they climb up on their horse and twirl that rope all around. So then the second to the last event after this is called Manganas de Caballo. It's in a demonstration of how well the charro has trained his own horse. The Manganas de Caballo has the charro attempt to lasso a mare from horseback. His horse is expected to stand as still as possible. The charro spins his lasso as 3 team members chase the mare between the charro and the arena wall. He has 3 chances to rope the mare. Unfortunately, this is one of those events I don't have a lot of good pictures of, but this is kind of gives you an idea right here where he's trying to lasso the mare, but his horse is not doing what it's supposed to. It's supposed to be standing completely still. So once they've gotten to this point, they're getting to the main event, the very last event. This is the event everyone sticks around to watch because it's the most exciting event, and that's called El Paso del Muerto. And it's called the Pass of Death for a reason, because it's very dangerous. And what's happening is the rider is on his horse bareback with no saddle, just kind of holding onto the mane, and he's riding around the ring, and then they bring out another horse and they chase it around the ring, and they try and get them both lined up so he can jump bareback from his horse to the horse next to him. And many times they don't make it. But this is a sequence that'll show that. This is some more of the roping skill photos. But this is the Pass of Death. And here he's he's gotten to the point to where he's balancing his knees, one on each horse, while they're galloping. I mean, they're not moving slowly, they're moving really fast. Here he's making that leap from the horse onto the other. And then finally, on the last sequence, he makes it. And of course he gets a big applause out of the audience, a lot of cheers, a lot of gritos, and you know. But a lot of times that's not what happens. They end up in the dirt. So that's pretty much what a whole charreada is about. And just in conclusion, today's participants are not usually ranchers. They are more likely to be tradesmen or urban professionals. They invest a great deal of time and money in maintaining their horses, assembling their costumes, traveling, training to events across the country. There are more than 100 charreada associations in the U.S. The San Antonio Charreada Association was the first organization certified by Federación Nacional north of the border. Today, California has 39 associations, and even Illinois has 4. And I'm sure in this local area, there's probably more than one charro association that puts on competitions that you could probably find out about over the web. It's amazing in this time and age, you know, kids are so distracted with so many other things that they can be doing with their time, but in these charro associations are expanding all over the U.S. Wherever there's a large population of Hispanics, there's probably going to be a charro association not far from there. And it's amazing the dedication and the tradition that they keep alive with this sport. Okay, so that's pretty much it, folks. I mean, if anybody has a question they want to ask me.
In the ladies' side saddle competition or demonstration, are they on some sort of a saddle that's modified?
Yes.
To enable them to
Absolutely
hold on and have something to grip?
Well, they have a kind of a something that shoots out from the side of the saddle that's sort of like a U-shaped leather thing that they put their knee on so that they can sit side saddle, and it holds them in place on the saddle. But it's still not easy for them to balance on that saddle like that. And there have been times in my book, there's a photo where there's some charros coming out and stopping a horse because the girl's saddle, when they're sitting that way, it puts a lot of pressure on the saddle to want to go this way. And if they don't have it on there tight enough, it starts to slip. And before you know it, they're riding the horse upside down. And so they have to stop the horse and, fix it, or else, the girl could get injured.
And the other question I had was with regard to both the bull riding and the bareback riding, it looks like down there they're allowed to use both hands.
Yes.
To grip, as opposed to the U.S. rodeo where it's just one hand.
In American rodeo, he has 8 seconds to hold on with one hand while the bull tries to buck him off, and it's more a competition where they're competing against each other. And here it's a team competition and it's run a little differently. But yeah, they're allowed to hold on with both hands.
I just was going to ask if a girl had ever fallen off of her horse.
I'm sorry?
Riding side saddle. Had any ladies ever fell off?
Have they ever fall off?
Yes.
Well, I haven't seen them fall off, but I've seen them come close because there was one slide in there where you saw the girl kind of rearing up with a very scared expression on her face, because sometimes they come very close to running into each other, or they do run into each other, and when those collisions occur, they can get knocked off the horse. And I haven't seen a girl actually get knocked off a horse, but I've seen them come close. They practice a lot, and these girls are a lot tougher than a lot of men I probably know that can do that.
Questions? Okay.
Is there any specific season they hold this kind of fiesta? If we want to visit one, you said on a website we could find one for a local one?
Well, I don't know. I'm pretty sure there's an association here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I wouldn't know how you could find out, but I bet if you went to Google and Googled Dallas Charros or something like that, I bet one of their websites would come up that has probably a calendar of events, because they usually, especially in the spring and summer, is when they hold most of their competitions.
I think she was wondering, is there a season like fall, summer, spring that they're more prevalent?
They're mostly prevalent in the spring and the summer and not so much in the winter.
I just wondered, you mentioned about team competition. In the San Antonio area, how many teams, do you know?
There's at least 3 that I know of.
Three
The
different
San
teams
Antonio
competing.
Charros are the oldest and have been there the longest, and they're the biggest association, and they kind of dominate there in San Antonio. But there's a couple of other splinter groups that have come into their own and also have their own teams, the Escaramusas and Charros, and they compete against each other. They have contests.
Good questions. Keep it up.
Are these teams somewhat static in that they're kind of, the same from year to year? Or do you see people switching back and forth from one team? Do they recruit
No,
from...
once they join a team, they usually stick with it. They're kind of clannish. I mean, these are families and these are traditions they're following, and so they don't usually jump around from teams. Maybe in Mexico, where it's more of a sport and they're actually paid good money to especially the Charros, to perform, they may jump from association to association if somebody offers them more money to go perform with them.
Well, and that has to do with my next question. Is there any kind of, is it lucrative financially at all?
No, they don't. Here in the U.S., they don't compete for any money prizes. They
Not
might
like
get
the
they might get a
professional-
ribbon or a trophy or
Okay.
something, but that's about it.
You really don't make because you said they had other occupations. You're really not making a living at this
Right.
like the Professional Rodeo Cowboys
Right.
Association or
And,
something
and
like that.
they barely make enough money from their people that pay to come see them and the concessions to just pay for the upkeep of the horses and the arena, because it's in the time I've been going, they've actually been growing, because when I first went there in 1980, they didn't even have a roof over the audience, over the stands, and now they've got a nice roof covering them, so if it's raining or real sunny, you're shaded from the sun. And they've actually been making improvements to the grounds over the years. And so it keeps getting a little better. They keep getting a little more participation, not only in the association, but from the public coming and attending their events. And sometimes they stage these events when they have a big convention group come in from out of town and they want to be entertained and be exposed to some of this Mexican culture. They'll pay them to come out and put on a demonstration for them.
Have you ever videotaped any of these events?
Unfortunately, no. I'm strictly a still photographer. But there are videos that you can find on the web. In fact, the Smithsonian, if you go to the Smithsonian website, I think they have a video that explains Charreada. They actually came to San Antonio, and I helped them get to where they needed to go and figure out, how to document it through video.
What part of San Antonio is the arena located?
It happens kind of on the south side near Mission San Jose in San Antonio. If you're familiar with San Jose, it's just a couple of blocks south of there. They have their Charro Ranch there, and it's been there a real long time, since the 40s.
How much training actually takes for a young man to be able to come to this time?
I think it's like anything else. The more they do it, the better they get at it. So some of them are better than others because they have the time to be practicing all the time. And usually at these events, you can always tell there's one or two charros that are really a little bit better than everybody else, because they started at a younger age and they just kept with it. Others.
How young?
Well, I've seen some usually some of them are teenagers that perform. They're 13, 14 years old. There's one young gentleman that's very advanced in his roping skills, can stand on the horse and jump through the lariat and everything, and he's only like 14 or 15 years old.
Do you want to become a Charro? Any other questions, comments? Okay.
This is on another subject. You took a picture of the missions, and I wondered how many of them are in San Antonio. We're relatively new in Texas.
How many missions in San Antonio?
Oh, how many missions? Including the Alamo, there's 5 missions that are up for World Heritage Site designation, and there's a foundation that was set up that's been working to restore all the missions, and they're really beautiful right now. I'd say 4 out of the 5 have been fully restored, and there's one left that they're working on. And they're actually going to close it after Easter Sunday so they can start renovations. And so by next year, they'll all be fully restored, and they're really beautiful to go inside and look at the everything. I mean, if you ever make it to San Antonio, it's worth your time to go down and look at all the missions.
I was a bad boy. Well, I did a good thing, though. I was at one of the missions within the last year, and a child was walking along the wall where you don't ever get on an edifice, an antiquarian edifice, climb. And I went over there and just started, I said, get off that thing, don't get back on. And I was really addressing the parents because the boy didn't know. But, I mean, it's tempting to get up on a wall, but, I mean, when I was going through one of the pueblos in New Mexico when I was in college, one of the college students started to climb on the wall. Man, the professor about had a fit. Get off that thing. It's an antique. Any last-minute questions or comments, protest? Mr. Rendon has images in the back of the auditorium for your viewing. Also, he has books for sale, and he can sign them while you're here. And we thank him for coming.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.